think it was like the second episode where they were all in that house.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about different. I mean, there's another murder. There's other murders here. Is that right?
Yeah. The impression that I got is that it's the same gun for both of those murders. So that the gun that he used to kill everyone in the drug house is the same gun that he used to kill the judge with. And he hid it in Sweetie's bar. I don't know, to come back and get it later or something, but that's the impression that I got.
And then there's a third like set of murders also then, right? That Sweetie, like he killed some people too.
Sweetie's implicated in, because he was conspiring with Clement Mansell for the drug house robbery. That's where Sweetie is implicated, right? So he's conspired and he was involved, and that's, I mean, felony murder in and of itself, even if he wasn't an accomplice to actual murder.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, so he's he's implicated there, and so that's what he tries to do with Carolyn, is he tries to get a deal with the DA to give up Mansell for those murders and the gun, in addition to the murders in the drug house, give up Mansell on that in exchange for immunity. And then when she comes back to him and says, "Oh yeah, I got you that deal," he's like, never mind. I don't want to be a snitch. There's no money in it. Basically. So a lot of bad decisions being made here by people who are in Clement Mansell's orbit. And that's before we even get to Carolyn, who makes a lot of bad decisions. But we find out that Sweetie kind of knows everybody in Detroit. And so he is the way through which Mansell is going to attempt to monetize that judge's journal. And, I think this is a good time. We'll talk a little bit about Bulldozer Burt here in a minute, who's David Cross in a wonderful cameo. I love David Cross. I wish that there had been some sort of tie to Arrested Development that we could have used here. I looked and looked, but I couldn't find any sort of link to use here aside from David Cross being in both, right?
I always think my favorite part was him as the never nude.
Yes. Yeah, with the jean shorts.
Yeah. It's so funny.
There are dozens of us.
Yeah, exactly.
So I also do like that Bulldozer Burt is yet another in a long line of crooked real estate people. I want to know who on the writing staff was wronged by somebody in the real estate business at some point in time, because we've had Gary, we've had what was his name in season 6 there?
Friday Night Lights guy.
Yeah, Friday Night. Calhoun Schreier.
Yeah.
We got him, and now we have Bulldozer Burt. So I think somebody got hurt at some point in time, but so they work together to extort Bulldozer Burt or blackmail Bulldozer Burt, and I figured since we had another lawyer on the call, it'd be a pretty good time for us to have a quick law minute to talk about the difference between extortion and blackmail.
Say hello to Miguel Sanchez.
What we call a law bomb.
That's a low blow, law. A blah, 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 law bomb.
That's why I want to settle. I'm not super prepared.
Oh, sure, like lawyers work in big skyscrapers and have secretaries. Look at him, he's wearing a belt. That's Hollywood for you.
I move for a bad court thingy.
You mean a mistrial?
Yeah. That's why you're the judge and I'm the law-talking guy.
The lawyer.
Right.
I object.
So, yeah, let's talk about blackmail versus extortion, because I think a lot of people think they're essentially the same thing. And in some places they are, right? Blackmail tends to be a sort of offense that falls under the broader definition of extortion. And so just to kind of break those out a little bit, blackmail is basically getting something from someone, getting them to do something or give you something or whatever because of a threat to reveal secret information. So the contents of the diary are secret information. What the diary represents is secret information that Sweetie thinks they're threatening to reveal. And the consequence of that is you give me money and I won't reveal your secrets. That's blackmail. Extortion, however, is basically the same thing, getting something from someone, getting them to do something or give you something, but through violence or coercion or some type of threatened violence. So the example that I have here, and you know, we can talk a little bit about this. The example I have here is the threat to arrest someone or have them arrested is the kind of example that I give. So if a cop, let's say a bad cop, threatens to arrest someone in order to compel a certain behavior or to get money out of that person, to extort a bribe, essentially, that's extortion because it's a threat to arrest a person that's done under color of authority. If, however, you're a citizen like Sweetie is in this instance, and you have this diary and you threaten to say, hey, if you don't pay me, I'm just going to have to turn this information over to the police, and who knows what's going to happen at that point. You're probably going to go to jail. That is blackmail. So you've got two different people in two different positions doing essentially the same thing, but one's extortion and one's blackmail. Do you agree with that, Michael?
Yeah, I do. And I would add that when I was practicing law, one of the things I was told very early on when you're negotiating in, say, a civil lawsuit, that to say either settle lawsuit for this amount or I'm going to go to the police is blackmail. So you have to, when I was trying to negotiate a settlement, I was always very careful not to cross that line to say, accept this offer, or, you know, make us a reasonable offer, or I'm going to police to report what you've done. Because then now I will have committed a crime. So,
yeah, exactly.
But yeah, you definitely got the thing. And I should add, by the way, thank you for including Lionel Hutz in this whole episode, because, you know, that's where you learn a lot of law, from Lionel Hutz.
That's absolutely right. The entire foundation of my practice is built on Lionel Hutz. So, yeah. My favorite TV lawyer ever, R.I.P. Phil Hartman. So it's an interesting sort of distinction, and we see it also with Carolyn, right? Because Carolyn has the light bulb come on kind of at the end of the second episode here, when she gets her hands on the journal and looks somebody up who, you know, we suspect is probably her rival for the judge's seat, and gets it in her head that, hey, maybe she can blackmail this person to end up the judge instead, to end up with her as the judge instead. So we see the kind of differing approach, and Mansell, he's all about the threats of physical violence. He's all about the extortion, right? That's what gets him out of bed in the morning. Mansell is not content to blackmail anyone. He gets off on the violence.
Yeah, I think the problem with Mansell, and I don't know if this is the right time to bring it up, is that, you know, somebody like that, it seems to me that he would come across somebody who is prepared for that, for, you know, him to be that impulsive, to be that, you know, he should have gotten got already. Is my thing. You would think he would have either been killed or arrested by this point, right? Yeah. That's it. And so, I mean, he was released from jail, I guess. Is that True. Or prison? Yeah. She got him out. Yeah. So I don't know. It just seems to me like somebody like that, he'd already have like maybe people already in line to, you know, like have a meeting with him, you know? Yeah, exactly. There'd be a whole list of people who are looking to get him as soon as he gets out of prison, right? As soon as he's no longer under protection, that it's time to take out Mansell. Yeah. He's also kind of a scary guy, right? I mean, he's unpredictable. He's capricious. So, you know, you got to worry about being around him. So maybe, you know, people kind of look at it like kind of, I think how Sweetie did, which is if he's gone, it's good. I'm not going to try and bring myself back into that orbit because that's chaos and I don't like where that goes. And then you just kind of get sucked back into it when he shows up. Yeah, yeah. Well, even the cops, as we find out in the next episode, that's their play, like with the Bulgarian, or is it this episode?
It's both of them in one. I can't remember exactly what's between one and what's in the other, but
yeah, him, the cop, Detroit cop, is saying, hey, if we we reveal this information about who the suspect is to the Godfather,
Toma.
the Albania, Toma, yes. That kind of puts them on the hunt for him too, and kind of doing their work for the police, basically.
Yeah, and I that's an interesting kind of. Let's talk about that point, because that's an interesting plot point for me. I see it as that's a very sort of Raylan thing to do. Like, I think about because Raylan gets very unhappy with Norbert after he does that. But I immediately thought of like season 1, episode 3, right? The Fixer with the bookie guy and the guy who wants to have the quick draw competition with Raylan in the backyard.
Yeah.
Like, that's what he does. He basically lies to each of the criminals in succession about the reward money and how much there is and why he's there and all of that. And in order to get them to sort of turn on and betray each other, and it has the desired outcome, it has the desired consequence, and he ends up, getting them. But he's very judgy of what Norbert does here.
Yeah. And it's almost, I don't know, maybe it's because of the passage of time and what he's been doing for the past in this, from the series end, the last series end to this, where maybe he has mellowed in his age, I guess. I don't know. I mean, it just seems out of, as you're saying, judgy. Like you shouldn't be throwing glass. If you're living in a glass house, you shouldn't be throwing stones.
Yeah, no stones. I there's a parallel.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think we've seen some definite differences in Raylan. One being, as you said in the show, Justified, that all he cared about was ending the criminality. He didn't really care whether it ended with a guy, in a grave or behind bars. He didn't really care how it got done as long as it got done. And here he's clearly a little more, by the book. I think we also see it in his choice of romantic partners, a little more sophisticated here, in Primeval than in the show.
Sure. Yeah. They're not foxy grifters, Jackie Nevada.
Oh yes.
Or pot smoking social workers, or yeah.
Now they're just like attorneys who are can be compromised.
So you know what? I'm glad you brought up the relationship between Raylan and Caroline. I think it's a good opportunity to talk a little bit more about this here, right? What do we know about Raylan? Raylan can't resist the damsel in distress. So when he finds out that the Albanians, or when he realizes that the Albanians are probably going to go after Caroline, he attempts to impress upon her that this is a very dangerous situation. Mansell's different. So they have this moment in her office, and then he shows up at her house after she calls him because she's being tailed by the Albanians. He runs them off, and then he tails her home and waits outside her house. She brings some bourbon out, blah, blah, blah. And they have these moments where in her office and then in his car that I'd call chemistry free, like entirely chemistry free moments that are supposed to be very overtly laden with the sexual tension. Vulture, when I read a review of one of these episodes, and Vulture called it pleasantly languid sexual tension, and I call it just unconvincing, right? What do you guys think of that?
Well, given his go ahead, Randy.
I was gonna say certainly, as you're saying, his tastes maybe are more sophisticated, but I think it's almost like it's forced, as you're saying, like what did you say? Chemically languid? Was that what
they said? Pleasantly languid. I said unconvincing. Yeah.
I think you're on the right track, Chris. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Michael.
No, I was just going to say. Obviously, we have this 10-year gap between what we, Raylan in Kentucky and now Raylan in Detroit. But like I say, there's the difference between his taste in women, which, was basically, thin, very attractive, not the sharpest tool in the shed women.